Captain Midnight.
This video will have spoilers for the first half of Invincible Season 2. Alright, so I have really enjoyed what we've gotten from these 4 episodes. The incredibly long break after Season 1 was frustrating. Even in this post-network era of TV where it feels like every show has a low episode order and then goes away forever, this really took a while. All of that is a little bit of a bummer, but I think what we got here makes that really easy to forgive. I want to draw a comparison between Invincible and The Boys, but before I get into that, I should mention the campaign for the comic I wrote, Binary Sea, is ending really soon. Check it out if you can. Digital editions are only $2. You'll be receiving it when the campaign wraps up, and we have tons of other perks and a really cool variant cover. Mostly, I just want everyone to be able to read this thing. I love telling this story, and Jason killed it on the art. The link is in the description. Back to The Boys though, the most common complaint I see about Invincible's fellow Amazon superhero show is that it spins its wheels too much and the structure of the seasons year after year has become too predictable. Too much like a Roadrunner cartoon with the team coming so close to finally offing Homelander, only for the narcissistic strongman to emerge once again victorious. While this critique is basically true, I'll go on the record and say that it doesn't bother me nearly as much as it seems to for other people. Speaking for myself, someone who loves and values a lot of much older television, the journey is a lot more important than the destination on TV. Some of my favorite shows don't even have real endings, whether because it was canceled early like Freaks and Geeks, or just wrapped up with a pretty normal episode, which really old shows like Gunsmoke would do occasionally. To me, TV is more about watching all the permutations and character relationships play out, exploring all the different ways a show can use their cast, and seeing that cast change and evolve through the years. Watching a writer's room learn how to write to their actors and their characters' strengths. To me, that is the great pleasure of television, the thing that truly sets it apart. A great finale is nice, and sometimes can feel critical if a show builds itself around a central mystery, but at the end of the day, I'll take a good Roadrunner cartoon over a dull, hyper-serialized, and poorly paced streaming show any day. But alright, I know, I should get back to Invincible. This critique of The Boys, that at the end of the day, it's a cat chasing its own tail again and again. It's still early, but I'd be surprised if Invincible found itself with those same problems. Though Invincible hews far closer to its source material. Now, I've read some of it, but I made the choice to not revisit it yet so the episodes can be fresh to me in the same way that they are to the majority of my audience. But one thing that was really made abundantly clear in these episodes is the sheer variety of superhero stories that Robert Kirkman and the writers on the show are drawing from. I continue to be impressed by just how much tonal variety they can pack into these episodes and make it work. I know some viewers probably hated Mark's foray into deep-sea politics in the second episode, where he has to make nice with the Queen of Atlantis and fight a giant monster in the process. It was definitely one of the sillier things the show has done up to this point, but honestly, I was really impressed with it. Though I'll admit, maybe less so for the scene itself, but for its demonstration of everything Invincible, the show, is willing to be. This episode, and really what we have of the season so far, has put in a lot of work to color in more of the corners of this already expansive universe in ways that could really pay off well down the line. But more importantly, the fact that this show can contain that subplot alongside the one where Deborah joins a support group for grieving spouses, only for a member of it to turn on her the second he discovers that she was married to Nolan, is just, like I said, really impressive to me. And I think that's what might set it apart from The Boys and its repetitive season structure. It just has such a bigger breadth of tones and potential stories to tell. It's exciting to see that balance struck so well. Having this Silver Age / Saturday morning cartoon-esque adventure work really well alongside that support group subplot made me realize just how bold this show is willing to get. Now, bold is an overused term in film and TV reviews, but I do think it applies here. Invincible is obviously riffing on the concepts and ideas found in decades of Marvel and DC stories, but what I'm really growing to love about it is how it refuses to settle for the pat, easy answers that those often do. That support group subplot is one example. Instead of finding solace in that group to return the Deborah character emotionally to a more comfortable season 1 status quo, which would have been an easy thing to do in a show like this, it opts to really lean into just how uniquely horrifying her situation is. She can sit with a group of people who lost their spouses and feel some sense of belonging with them, because obviously she did lose Nolan. She learned that in some ways he never existed in the first place. But all of that goes out the window the second they learn what he did. It's genuinely upsetting to watch, and I thought they handled it really well. Another place you can see the show refusing to take the easy storytelling out is in Adam Eve's subplot. Like, let's be honest, her parents are pretty far from likable. Her dad especially is aggressively negative to his daughter, annoyingly stubborn about taking that life-changing golden apple, and just generally comes off as a close-minded asshole. Adam Eve, meanwhile, only has the best of intentions. She's kind and conscientious, and even builds a beautiful community park in a struggling neighborhood. It would have been so easy to wrap this story in a nice, feel-good bow where her dad has all his annoying crap thrown in his face and is forced to immediately see the error of his ways. Instead, we're given something a lot more interesting. Adam Wilkins may be the worst, but he's not wrong when he points out the recklessness with Adam Eve and the rest of the heroes use their power. The park she created quickly fell apart because she didn't put almost any thought into building it, besides it just feeling like a nice thing to do, and she's far less sure of herself afterward. That's interesting, and it puts the character's feet to the fire in a way that we haven't seen before. What could have been resolved with a very easy to imagine scene of our heroine giving a cutting and sarcastically morally righteous speech to her insensitive dad was instead used to fuel Adam Eve reassessing everything she thought she knew about being a hero, and I just think that's a lot more compelling. There's some more subplots I liked that I could probably touch on. I'm especially interested to see where this Donald stuff is going. I like that he's becoming such a prominent character now. I kind of wrote him off initially because he seemed like a nothing one-off character that like Frank Castle would terrify in a Garth Ennis Punisher comic, but they've really invested a lot of time with him. I'm hoping it pushes Cecil into some new places because so far, one of my few real complaints with this season is that Walton Goggins is being really underutilized. If you've seen Justified or Righteous Gemstones, you know how much this guy can bring to the table, but Invincible really hasn't asked all that much of him yet as a performer. I also like what they're doing with the former Teen Team characters so far, though I feel like they'll probably be better serviced in the back half of the season, along with our new supervillain Angstrom. With the Teen Team taking over for the Guardians, the Immortal leading this group just feels like a really bad fit. The guy also isn't at the top of his game mentally, clearly still angry and traumatized by Omni-Man's betrayal. I liked the stuff with Robot adjusting to his new body well enough, but for the most part, I'm looking forward to seeing how this group is going to implode, because that feels pretty inevitable right now. But alright, let's finally talk about the big man himself and Mark. This is a great character, and J.K. Simmons is fantastic in the role, but I will throw out one critique here and say that I wish they had found a more subtle, or at least less explicitly on-the-nose way to have Nolan struggle literally yelling things like, "Why do I feel this way?" I don't hate it or anything, and it fits squarely within the kind of classic superhero comic storytelling that Invincible's so indebted to. But after missing the character for the bulk of these episodes, I would have liked to spend some time with him in a way that conveyed this a little more gracefully. Still, the Thraxan stuff was really good. This is kind of an aside, but I loved that sequence set to Nick Cave's cover of Leonard Cohen's Avalanche. I was kind of shocked to hear it because it was recorded for Star's pirate show, Black Sails, 8 or 9 years ago. Pretty good show, by the way. So not exactly a really obvious needle drop like Radiohead's Karma Police at the start of the season. It was a great pull though, and I think it really elevated one of the best looking sequences of the whole show. The reveal that Omni-Man has a new wife and son definitely took me off guard. A good twist, and the more we learn about the Thraxans, a really sad character note for Nolan. He's racked with guilt and anger about what he did on Earth, but instead of trying to go home and attempt to make things right, he basically speedruns a whole new life with a species that has a 1-year lifespan. A way to get back some of what he's lost without having to face up to what he's done. The battle against the Viltrumites is everything we've come to expect from this show in the best way. Even when they do a more traditional DC animated show style superhero battle, there's usually a little extra gore, but they save going all out for fights like this. And I think that's a really smart choice, because when they do finally go all out like this, you know there are going to be real lasting consequences. And in this case, we're left with a really excellent cliffhanger. Look, I will always appreciate a good cliffhanger, and the idea that Mark would have to go back to Earth, blackmailed into being its conqueror on the Viltrumites' behalf, caught me completely off guard. It was the perfect way to cap off that battle and got me really excited for the rest of the season. I'll be honest, though I cover less superhero stuff on this channel than I did a few years ago, I do still talk about it a lot, and that wasn't always fun this year. With a couple notable exceptions, it was an extremely rough year for superhero stuff. I got a lot of comments saying my expectations were just too high, or that I wasn't willing to just engage with these superhero action stories on their own terms. I've read so many of those comments and also seen so many bad superhero projects this year that I was starting to wonder if maybe they were just right. Maybe after all these years, there just wasn't much left to superheroes that got me excited anymore. So, as 2023 closes out, I'm really glad Invincible Season 2 exists, because I loved these episodes. The way it riffs on and recontextualizes old comic book concepts and themes while feeling so distinct just feels special, and I can't wait to see where the rest of this season goes. Invincible thrives on the visceral and the messy, both with its characters' inner lives and its over-the-top violence, and I found a lot to love in that. Oh, and if you missed it last week, I released a video about the creation of my comic, Binary Sea. I had a ton of fun talking about that and expanding on my face reveal announcement video from a few weeks ago. We only have a few days left, so if you have any interest in checking out a sci-fi adventure story set on the high seas from me, now is your chance. Oh, and if you want to talk YouTube and growing your channel or a potential channel, we have a tier for that too. I'd love to get on the phone and go over it with you. Again, it's only $2, so I really hope you enjoy Binary Sea and check out that campaign link down below.
Here's a special tip for the fellows and girls.
The regulation of His Majesty's Royal Navy. Article 1. None shall presume to quarrel with or strike his superior officer. The pain of such punishment shall be that the captain...
To have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.